All right, Brent, if you're ready to go, we're recording.
Hey, hello everybody. Good morning. We're going to talk about what we can do to prepare ourselves to drive in some crazy winter weather, and it's coming fast, as you know. Last week we had a really big cool down here in the state, and it can happen fast when the seasons change around here. So we want to talk about what you can do to be a little bit more aware of how you need to drive in different weather with snow and rain and ice and wet conditions on the roadways. We'll talk about how to keep yourself safe and things that you can watch for in your vehicle to be prepared for this type of weather. So, first things first, we're going to talk about the road hazards, different hazards you might encounter as you're driving down the road in the wintertime, and some safe driving techniques that you can use to avoid an accident or injury from driving in these conditions. And we'll talk about your vehicle preparedness, some certain things you want to look for, different things to inspect and look for, some equipment that you might want to have in your vehicle as well. And ultimately, we just want to raise awareness to this because the seasons do change fast and it can creep up on us. And before you know it, you're driving in the middle of a snowstorm. So we want to raise awareness to that and help our drivers around the state today. So ready or not, winter is coming. You saw last week we had a big cool down. The weather actually got really nice over the weekend. It was beautiful weather outside. But I see in the forecast this next weekend it's going to cool off again, and possibly some more moisture coming our way. So we need to get ready. We need to be aware that it can change and come to us. So what we want to look at today is what do you do for yourself? How do you get yourself ready as far as your driving techniques and your awareness? How do we be a little bit more alert and prepared for these kind of things as a driver? And what do we do to the vehicle to make sure that we're not getting stranded or stuck in the snow or caught in a snowbank or something like that? We're going to talk about how to prepare the vehicle for those things. So when it comes to driving in the wintertime, there's different conditions, and driving is a little bit different, as you know. So one thing you want to watch for is your speed. Make sure that you're not going too fast for the conditions. A lot of times when it's really low visibility or icy or snowy, we need to slow down. You want to keep those wheels moving, though, because that allows your traction and for you to continue to drive in a safe manner. But your following distance needs to be much greater because it's so much harder to stop when you touch the brakes and it doesn't stop when you think it should. It's a different feeling, and you don't want to be too close to somebody or following too close that you can't stop in time. So watch your speed and watch your following distance. Those are two key things. When it comes to traction, you want to make sure that your wheels are having some traction, that you're moving where you're intending to go, that you're not sliding or slipping off the roadways. And part of that is just having a good constant speed, not revving the engine too much or braking too fast or anything erratic. You want to be kind of a smooth, continuous motion, keeping those wheels turning. So when it comes to braking, you might want to just tap the brakes, make sure that they're gripping that your tires are gripping the surface, that you're able to brake and come to a good stop. Sometimes pumping the brakes is the best way to do that when you go to stop. Just make sure that you're going the way you need to. And with your steering, you don't want to do anything really erratic. No sharp turns, no cranking the wheel over. Make sure you do a good smooth turn where you turn into it, and kind of gentle, smooth, consistent motions as you're driving. Those of you that have slid off of the road, and I'm sure many of us have before, it's a weird feeling when your car is going one way and you turn the steering wheel the other and you're trying to stop and it's out of control. It's a tough situation. One of the best things you can do is just steer into it and pump those brakes and get that traction going. So be aware. There's lots of different conditions, from fog to rain to ice on the road to heavy snowstorm. Everything can be a little bit different, but we need to be aware that we could be encountering that here in the next week or two. So we want to be ready for those things. Some things we can do for our cars, things that we can prepare for. You don't want to find yourself in this situation where you are having to get pushed out or you're stuck in a snowbank. So vehicle preparation is key for that, and we'll look at some of those things now. Maintenance of your car can really prevent an issue down the road. Having the right components on your car for the winter can help. And we'll look at some things you might want to have in an auto emergency kit in case you do get stranded or in case you do need some supplies to wait out a snowstorm to pass. So we'll watch for those now. Looking at the battery, this is one of the key things you want to look for on maintenance on your car. In the wintertime, it takes a little bit more power to crank that battery over when it's colder. And so you want to make sure you have a good solid battery, that it's ready to go. You can get these checked out, do an inspection on it, look at the date on it, see how old the battery is, and maybe take it to an auto parts store and they can check it for you to make sure that your battery is good to go. Another key thing to look at in winter driving is the tires. The traction, the friction on the roadway, that's critical to keep yourself and your vehicle safe, to stop and turn and drive as you need to. So looking at that tread depth is probably one of the most important things you can look at right now. Being that it's good weather, we're used to just driving and stopping on dry roads whenever we push on the brakes. We're used to turning and going and driving where we need to. In the wintertime, it's different. We need to make sure we have good tread so that there's good traction as we're driving, and we can turn and stop and be safe in our car. So go outside, check your vehicles, especially this time of year while the weather is still good. Make sure you got good tread depth going into this winter season. Another thing to look at is the type of tread, not just the depth, but also the type. There's different makes of tires, and some are better for different conditions than others. There's all-terrain types, and you want to have a good type of tread that's good for driving in snow and on wet roads as well. For those that are driving on mountain passes, or if you're planning to drive in places where you got a lot of snow or deep snow, there's certain tires that are better for that. And there's certain symbols on the side of your tires that will show you what type of a tire it is. So if you're going over mountain passes and you have traction required, if you see signage saying that, where you need to have a certain tire, or you need to have tire chains or traction required equipment for your tires, you can look on the side. There's this 3 peaks. You'll see the 3 mountain peaks with a little snowflake in the middle. That indicates that it's that tire is rated for driving in those conditions. So a 3 peak with the mud and snow, that's what that M&S is for. Mud and snow tires can really help you with traction there. So tread and the right tires might be the best thing you can look at this time of year. Other things that are really important to look at are your windshield, making sure that it's clear. And throughout the summertime, these wiper blades, they can become cracked or deformed, or they can wear out and not clear the windshield as well as they do. And so it's good to check those out now and make sure you have some really good wiper blades on there. So the top one here is a standard wiper blade. You can see how that looks. It's just standard for most cars and trucks. The one on the bottom is a winter blade. It's a lot more solid, it's heavy duty, and it's got a solid rubber cover on it. So you might consider changing out your wiper blades right now, or getting an upgrade on those. Something that's in good condition before the season starts. Another thing to look at is your windshield wiper fluid. It's important to keep this full. And if you're like me, I run it a lot more in the wintertime than I do in the summertime. I want to make sure I have a clear windshield when you get all that snow and the salt from the roads and everything that builds up on your car. It's important to be able to see clearly. And so having the washer fluid full, having plenty of that in your car, and having the right kind is really important, something you'll check out right now. Make sure that you get the right temperature ranges on these. They come with different ranges, and they work for different temperatures. You don't want to have the wrong kind in there that freezes up and breaks the hoses on your windshield fluid system there. So check those things out. Make sure you're stocked up and full for your vehicles for the wintertime. Last week we had that snow come. I had 3 inches of snow that hit at my house on Monday, and it went out to my truck, and I thought, wow, I hope I have my scrapers inside. And sure enough, I was lucky they were in there. I kept them under the seat in the back of the truck. But it's important to clear everything off and keep those scrapers available. And those that have been used a lot, you might consider upgrading those and getting some new ones that scrape well. Some of mine over time, they kind of break down and they don't clear as well. So having those on hand and upgrading and keeping those in the car is very important. Being able to see where you're going is the critical thing to stay safe. So don't be this guy. And sometimes in the mornings in the wintertime when it's cold and you want to get going in the morning, you have ice on your windshield. It can take time to clear it, and it's cold. You want to get that heater and defroster going, and you want to get on your way. Sometimes we're in a hurry and we think, oh, I'll just clear enough that I can see and get going. Well, that's a big risk. And you want to make sure you clear that whole windshield, and also the side windows of your car, and also the back windows. You want to be able to see everything and see all your mirrors so that it is safe to go driving. Don't take chances. Don't take chances on just clearing a little bit. Make sure that's defrosted and cleared, and that you can see and drive safely. So those are some keys you want to look for with your vehicle. Other things to look at are your fluids. Make sure fluids are full. Make sure your defroster is working. It's a good time of year to check that before you really need it. And a heater, obviously, you want to stay warm in your car. So check those things out. Lights, signals, flashers, any other key equipment on your car, it's a good time to check that. And also this time of year, people will put a little bit of extra weight on the rear axle of their car. With cars that have a rear driving wheel, sometimes that helps with the traction to keep that weight on the back and keeps you going in the direction you need to go. So check those things out and do what you need to do to keep yourself and your vehicle prepared and safe. When it comes to driving, if you're going to go on a trip or if you're going to drive a long ways, it's good to keep your gas tank at least half full of fuel. And the reason why is if you were to get stranded somewhere, you're going to want to keep that car running and keep yourself warm. So in the wintertime, it's really important to keep your fuel tank full or at least half full as you're driving around. Other equipment you might want to have are jumper cables, having a phone charged in case you needed to call somebody. You might have the cords to charge your phone, have extras of those in your car. That could be very helpful if you got stopped and needed to recharge your phone. Having shovels, first aid kits, or even a go bag of equipment that you might need. Some good ideas of things you might want there. Other equipment, and these might be good in the summer as well, but in the winter can be very helpful too, is some hazard triangles. So if you get stopped on the side of the road and there's low visibility and there's snow coming down, sometimes those cars behind you won't see a car on the side of the road. And so having those triangles that you can put out that are reflective can help people know that there's somebody on the side of the road ahead of them. Reflective equipment like vests, if you're going to get outside of your car, those are always good to keep around. Any outerwear. So I like to keep extra gloves and hats in my truck just in case I need them when it's cold. You never know if you have to get outside and do something. It might be nice to have a pair of gloves or something there. Even an extra coat sometimes is good to have, especially if you're going on a trip. Have the supplies that you need. Have a toolkit, a blanket, even food and water. If you were to get stranded, those might be things you would want to have. Or if you had to wait out a storm for something to pass, having a little extra supply is a good thing. So think about what you need for your car and your conditions and where you drive, whether it's going over mountain passes or just in town or wherever it is. There may be different things that you need and want to have in your car. So those are things to think on. So what is a safe speed? How do we know what is safe for the conditions? Well, it's up to the driver to determine what is safe. It's their responsibility. When you're behind the wheel, it's on you to keep yourself and your passengers and others safe. Well, in wintertime, it's different. You might be following snow plows. You might have cars kicking up snow in front of you that's blinding your view. You might have low visibility and fog, or you may have really slick roads. And sometimes the speed limit is not the safest for current conditions. So make sure you're aware, make sure you're alert of how the conditions are, make sure that you're keeping a safe speed and not going too fast for the conditions. The key is know your limits. Watch the weather. Sometimes just watching the weather and knowing, if you have a place to drive the next morning, you can watch the weather ahead of time and see how icy is it going to be? How cold is it going to be? Is there a storm that could be coming that I need to avoid? Do I need to leave a little bit earlier? Do I need to take extra time? Planning ahead and being aware is important to keep yourself safe. So know your limits, know what your car can do and how to stay safe out there, and take time for your safety. It's really the priority. So to summarize, we want to prepare ourselves. We want to be aware of what can happen. We want to look at conditions and know that winter's coming. It's coming fast, and we need to be ready to drive in those conditions. Prepare your vehicle. Look at those different components we looked at, whether it's battery or tires or other things like that. We want to have those things in place. And remember to drive defensively. It's really the goal to get home safe every day, to get to your destination safely. And sometimes we may overlook that, but safety really is the priority. It needs to be first in all we do. So hopefully today's webinar has helped to raise awareness to that. Winter is coming here, and hopefully everybody can learn and be safe from that. So with that, Jason, do we have questions today?
Folks, if you've got any questions, go ahead and type those into the chat box there, and we'll get Brent to answer those now. This is Stump the Dummy. You can give him any question, and we'll do our best to answer that. Good job, Brent. That's a great reminder. It seems like, especially the way this fall's been, we haven't had a lot of warning that we're going to be going into cold time of the year, and it could hit us really quickly. So, all right, I'm looking there. Somebody really wants to know who really knows how to use washer fluid. Question on steering into a skid. Steering into a skid is scary. Can you elaborate further on this?
Yeah. So if you're starting to slide, sometimes people want to crank that wheel to the opposite way because they think they're going to turn out of it, or they panic, or they tap the brake. They hit the brake really hard and it causes them to slide even more. what you want to do is you want to turn into it. And, it's kind of counterintuitive. You wouldn't think that, but you want to turn into it, keep your wheels going in the right direction, because that allows them to get that traction to come to a stop again. And then you want to pump the brakes, just tap it, pump it. You don't want to, press down really hard, but you want to make sure you're coming to a stop that way with tapping the brakes.
Yeah, good advice there. Yeah, Doug.
I would also just add a little bit there, know your vehicle too. If you're driving a rear wheel drive vehicle only, and you're starting to skid, when you turn into that skid, take your foot off the gas, and that compression from the motor will help drag the rear wheels back behind you a little bit as you turn into that skid. But if you have front wheel drive or all wheel drive, or your four wheel drive's engaged, you need to keep your foot on the gas as you steer into it, because taking your foot off the gas can just make that slide, even worse. So be familiar with what you're driving and the characteristics of that vehicle, so you know exactly, the proper way to correct that steer.
All right, good answer there. We've got several questions here. Doug, there's a question on the laws on snow tires. We know Doug's our local expert on tire law, so we'll throw that one to Doug.
I didn't see what exactly is the question?
Oh, actually, let's ahead of that one, just going on what your discussion was. What about all-wheel drive? Do you steer into the skid with an all-wheel drive vehicle?
Yeah, you steer into the skid, but you want to keep your foot on the gas so that those front wheels can help pull you out of the skid as well.
The question on snow tires is what are the laws on snow tires? So just like a discussion that we had in our first session this morning.
There are certain roads in Utah that occasionally, like when there's a storm, will have a traction device requirement. Big and Little Cottonwood Canyons are examples here in Salt Lake County, where frequently you have to have a traction device. And so what the law is if you have an all-wheel drive or four-wheel drive vehicle with mud and snow rated tires, which is basically all-season tires, on all four positions of the vehicle, the fact that you have all-wheel drive or four-wheel drive with all-season tires on there qualifies as a traction device. If you have a two-wheel drive vehicle, then you have to have, in order to not have to stop and put chains on or some traction device on the tires, you have to have what Brent mentioned is that three-peak mountain snowflake insignia on the side of your tire. The three-peak mountains with the snowflake on there. And that's basically a snow tire. There are some all-season radials that are severe weather rated that have the three-peak mountain snowflake embossed on the side of the tire. So if you have those tires on your two-wheel drive vehicle, that also qualifies as a traction device. If you do not meet those criteria, then you would have to stop and chain up or put some other traction device like a snow sock or something over your wheels.
Okay, thanks, Doug. Appreciate that. Just some good advice that was given here. Be careful driving up and down hills, and yeah, obviously that's definitely something that can be hazardous to us. Brent, back to you. What's the safest way to drive around a snowplow?
Safest way to drive a snowplow. So keep a distance for one thing, because they could be kicking things up as you're driving behind them. So I would have a good following distance. And if they're blocking most of the road, you gotta kind of wait it out. But if it's clear and you've got multiple lanes, say you're on a freeway or something, you've got multiple lanes, you can go around, but you want to make sure they're off to the side, that they're clearing out of the way, that you're not going to get hit by what they're pushing off or kicking something else up to hit you.
In a lot of cases,
never try.
Mm-hmm.
Never try and pass the snow plow on the right, for sure.
Yeah.
And I would say don't. I mean, if you really can help it, don't pass the snow plow.
Yeah. I have a son who works for UDOT, and I hear some stories about people passing snow plows, and yeah, in most cases hang back there. But like Brent said, if I got 6 lanes and there's one plow in the far right hand lane, give yourself plenty of space and all of that. One that scares me more is passing semis. I don't pass the snow plows, but those semis make me nervous. Just looking, I don't see any more questions there. Brent, final word.
That's it, everybody. Be ready for winter, because it's coming, and let's be safe out there. Have a great day.